Today I will be covering Mendel's law of inheritance. Mendel's law of inheritance from the genetic portion of class 12. I will be referring to the NCERT book for that. This is chapter 5, principles of inheritance and variation. So I will read the material and will make you understand what does it mean. Have you ever wondered why an elephant always gives birth to an only to an baby elephant? Why? Why? For example, why human being only give birth to an human being, not the other animal? Because the reason is all gene, chromosome, DNA. These all are the reason. So, for example, human has 23 pair of chromosome 23 pair of chromosomes. Okay, so a human mother and father give birth to a child which is also human. So the mother gamete, okay, the mother gamete will have 23 chromosome and the father gamete also have 23 chromosome. These two unite and form a child which has 46 chromosome, that is 23 pair. So this is the reason behind why a human only give birth to an human, or why an elephant give birth to an elephant, or a mango tree seed give uh, a mango tree. I- so this is the reason why that particular animal give birth to that only particular animal, because of this gene, because of this chromosome. Number of chromosome matters. Everyone have a different number of chromosome. For example, like I said, human has 23 pair of chromosome. Now, given that they do, are the offspring identical to their parents? So why elephant give birth to an elephant? This is a question. This is clear, I think. And now the next question is, what are they, the offspring, the children, identical to their parents or somewhat different? Are we similar to our parents in every aspect? No, we are human being like our parents, but we are uh, not similar, not clone of our parents. We are not clone. So we are genetically different. There is some difference in us, like in our appearance, in our behavior. So the some characters may similar, but not all. So, or sometimes are different. Okay, so they may be similar, or they may be different also. In every case we are different from our parents. These and several related questions are dealt with scientifically in the branch of biology known as genetics. So these questions are dealt in biology's branch, which is known as genetics. These subjects deal with the inheritance as well as the variation of character from parents to offspring. So this Mendel's laws, we will come to know that what we inherit from our parents, and we are different also from our parents. How we are variation, there are some sort of variation from our parents, variation as well as inheritance. Both inheritance mean what what parents give to us, okay, that we inherit. And the variation means what are the variation from our parents. Inheritance is the process, look, inheritance is the process by which characters are passed on from parents to progeny. So parent will pass on the characters to progeny. This is known as inheritance. And the variation is variation is the degree by which progeny differ from their parents. we, what we are different from our parents, that is called the variation. We human knew this from early 8 8000 to 1000 BC, that one of the cause of variation was hidden in sexual reproduction. We know from the past that sexual reproduction in sexual reproduction the variation is hidden, but we are not uh, on that time that was not scientifically proven. So Mendel was the one who scientifically proved it for the first time, and he didn't recognize for many of the years. After that, when a few more scientists came and redo that experiment, Mendel got recognized on that time. After death, Mendel got recognized. uh, I'll read that. Hidden in sexual reproduction, they exploited the variation that were naturally present in the wild population of plants and animals to selectively breed and select for organisms that possess desirable character. For example, through artificial selection and domestication from ancestral wild cow, we have well-known Indian breeds, for example Shival cow in Punjab. We must, however, recognize that through our ancestors, they knew about the inheritance of characters and variation. They had very little idea about the scientific basis of this phenomena. They don't have the scientific uh, knowledge for that, but they knew that something is hidden between the sexual reproduction. So they reproduce the wild breeds, the good breeds of cows, and somehow mm, hybrid cows, which are having the best characters of that wild cows. Okay, so they will breed that cow, and uh, the progenies are born with the superior characters. So they knew, but not scientifically proven. Now, Mendel's law of inheritance. Now come to the point, which is Mendel's law of inheritance. So Mendel conducted some sort of experiments to show, to see, and to show us that characters are passed on through parents to their offspring. uh, Now, what is inheritance? As I said, inheritance can be defined as the process of how a child receives genetic information from the parent. Okay, so the whole process of heredity is depend upon inheritance. The heredity what we inherit from our parents are depend upon inheritance, and it is the reason that the offspring are similar to parents. This simply means that due to inheritance, the member of the same family possess similar characters. So inheritance is responsible for what families same character, the same character which is possessed by the family, all family members, is the inheritance. So it was during the mid 19th century that headway was made in the understanding of inheritance. Gregor Mendel conducted hybridization experiment on garden pea for 7 years. What Gregor Mendel experimented for 7 years and proposed the law of inheritance in living organisms. So think, Gregor Mendel in garden pea plant. Pea plant means these are pea plant. In pea plant he experimented. Why only pea plant? I'll tell you. Mendel, so laws of inheritance in living organism. During Mendel's investigation into inheritance pattern, it was for the first time that statistical analysis and mathematical logic were applied to problems in biology. So he applied mathematical and statistical analysis in his experiment. Mm, because there are large sampling size. In this experiment he have to dealt with large sampling size, which give greater credibility to that data that he collected. Okay, so now I'll tell you why only pea plant, why Mendel selected only pea plant. So the first reason is pea plant is easily, we can easily grow and maintain pea plant. So this is one of the reasons. The second reason is pea plant can self pollinate or can be cross pollinated. So this is, so he can easily cross pollinate the plant to see the what kind of characters are shown. So this is the second reason. The third reason is it is an annual plant. Pea plant is an annual plant, so many generation can be studied in short period of time. And pea plant have so many characters that can that we can consider. So look at this, like the the seed shape, round wrinkle there, round wrinkle. Now what these are, these are Mendel call it traits. So what is this round and wrinkle? These are the two traits of a character. So for example, seed shape, seed shape gene. So this is the gene where two types of characters can be seen, two types of two types of trait can be seen. So the seed shape can be round or wrinkled. So these two are the contrasting these two are the traits. Okay, and seed shape is the gene. There is one gene, there is a gene where two characters, two contrasting traits are present. I'm so sorry for saying it character. uh, for seed color, okay, for seed color, uh, yellow and green are the seed colors. Okay, flower color, violet and white, these are the two flower color. So there are two types of, there are two types of traits in for every character. So um, Mendel take seven characters for performing his experiment. So what are these seven characters? Seed shape, round wrinkle, seed color, the seed color can be yellow and green, flower color can be violet and white, pod shape, the shape of the pea pod is can be full or constricted, the pod color can be green or yellow, the flower position can be axial, or you can say axial, or the terminal position, on stem height can be tall and dwarf. Now two traits. Okay, so and why these traits are called dominant trait and recessive trait? Why is it so? uh, Dominant trait and recessive trait, we call some character dominant and some characters recessive, some characters trait dominant and recessive. Why is it so? Because uh, let's consider, no, I'll tell this after proving the first law, that is law of dominance of Mendel. You will come to understand why the characters are called dominant and recessive. Okay, His experiment has a large sampling size collected. Also, the confirmation of his interference from experiment on successive generation on his test plants proved that his result pointed to general rules of inheritance rather than being unsubstantiated ideas. Mendel investigated characters in the garden pea plant that were manifested as two opposite traits. As I said that Mendel take the characters where where two traits can be seen, like a plant can be tall or dwarf. There are two types of seed, the two types of seed, the seed color. So Mendel uh, take all these characters. These allowed him to set up a basic framework on rules governing inheritance, which was expanded on by later scientists to account for all the diverse natural observation. And now, what Mendel do? What is the main experiment of Mendel? Mendel conducted such artificial pollination, cross pollination experiment using several true breeding pea lines. A true breeding line is one that have undergone continuous self pollination. So what Mendel do? Mendel cross pollinated such pea plant. Several true breeding pea plant. What is true breeding? True breeding means the plant which have continuously self pollinated in themselves. So they are called true breeding pea plant. Shows the stable trait inheritance. So if a plant is a true breed, means it pollinated uh, by themselves. Self pollination occurs in these type of plants, and these plants uh, conserve the characters. Okay, there's no change in the progeny because they are self pollinated, so the progeny won't change. Okay, progeny in the genes won't change drastically in this case. And in case of cross pollination, the genes characters of the plant may change drastically. So Mendel took the true breeding pea plants for this. Show the stable trait inheritance and expression for several generations. Mendel selected 14 true breeding pea plants, so he take 14 plants as pair which were similar except for one characters with contrasting traits. Some of the contrasting traits selected were smooth or wrinkled seed. Some of the traits are smooth or wrinkled seed, yellow and green seed, inflated full or inflated or constricted, green or yellow pods, and tall or dwarf plant. Okay, so he took all the traits. Contrasting traits studied by Mendel in P. The traits I have shown, that stem height, tall, dwarf, flower color, violet, white, flower position, axial or terminal, pod shape, inflated, constricted, pod color, green and yellow. Excuse me. Seed shape can be round or wrinkled. Seed color can be yellow and green. These are the traits. Dominant and recipient, we won't come to that point where. So what he did, the first experiment, what he did, we know the petal, stigma, anther, stamen and carpel. These all are the parts of flower. Stigma, anther, stamen and carpel, these all are female and male parts of flower. So he cross pollinated. He removed the anther uh, from the plants and pollinate the other plant flowers, so that they excuse me, steps in making a cross be. So now, what? Inheritance of one gene. So first, in the first experiment that we called monohybrid cross, what he did, he only takes one character for consideration, and then what? One gene. Okay, so first is mono hybrid cross. Okay, so in this cross, what he did, in monohybrid cross, in this experiment, Mendel took two pea plants of opposite traits. Okay, one opposite, he took two plants of opposite traits and cross pollinated them. For example, a plant which is a plant, a tall plant, and a dwarf plant. He took these two type of plant. He only considered one trait at a time. Okay, one character at a in this monohybrid cross. So tall pea plant, what are the genotypes of tall pea plant? Genotype means the genetic makeup. So let it be a big T and big T, capital T, and dwarf for dwarf, small t, small t. So these are the genetic makeup. Now if we cross these two, true breeding, as we know these are true breeding uh, plants. So if we cross, so let it be the male and it will be the female. Okay, if we cross these two, first of all the gamete formation will happen, and the gamete will only have the half number of, only one character will pass on. So one gamete, two gamete here also, and these two type of gamete will form. And not two type of, only one type of gamete will form, that is in this case the capital T, the tall, and in this the dwarf. When these two meet, what will happen? Capital T and small t, this is called the F1 generation. Okay, F1 generation. So this is the genotype. So by crossing the tall and dwarf plant, what we get? We get this kind of genotype. This kind of progeny will form. Progeny or offspring will form. Will form. Okay. So tell me, what kind of progeny will form? Is this a tall plant or a dwarf plant? So Mendel formulated that, see that this is the tall plant, but we know that both the genes are present here, both the traits are present here, the capital T for tall and small t for drop. So why the plant is tall? The phenotype means the appearance that we can see, the phenotype will be tall. So from this we can say tall is the dominant trait. Tall is dominant and dwarf is recessive. So we will come to a conclusion that the trait which shows itself in the F1 progeny, when both the contrasting traits are present in the offspring, the one which shows itself is the dominant trait. So here what is showing itself? The tall gene, the tall trait will showing itself. So the tall will be the dominant one and the other dwarf will be the recessive one. So from this experiment, Mendel proposed two laws. First law is a of dominance law of dominance, and the second is law of segregation. What is law of dominance? So law of dominance is that this is also called the Mendel's first law of inheritance. According to this law, hybrid offspring will only inherit the dominant trait. As we can see, the big T, that is tall trait, is shown. So only hybrid means having both the trait in them. Hybrid offspring will only inherit the dominant trait. It will only we can show the dominant trait in the phenotype. The alleles that are suppressed are called the recessive trait. So this is suppressed. In this case, the small t, that is dwarf allele, is suppressed. So this is the recessive trait. While the allele that determine the trait, the allele which shows itself in the phenotype, is known as the dominant trait and recessive trait. So now I hope you understand what is dominant and what is recessive. The dominant one, which shows itself in the hybrid generation, and the recessive is the one which cannot show, which can only show itself um, in homozygous condition, where if I'll tell I'll tell you, if both small t is present, then only it will show itself, then only it is dwarf, it can be a dwarf plant. If this type of condition is present, big T and small t, the recessive one will not show in phenotype, and the dominant one will show itself in the phenotype. So this is the law of dominance. I'll tell you once again what is law of dominance. This is law of dominance is also called the Mendel first law of inheritance. According to this law of dominance, hybrid offspring will only inherit the dominant trait in the phenotype. The alleles that are suppressed is called recessive trait, while the alleles that determine the trait are known as the dominant trait. I hope you understand. Now, law of segregation. What is law of segregation? Uh, law of segregation. The law of segregation states that during the production of gametes, two copies of each hereditary factor separate so that offspring acquire one factor from the parent. So, what is law of segregation? Look. At the time of gamete formation, big T, okay, and small t, small t. Okay, so a gamete will form the characters in the F2 generation. Okay, I'll show you T and T. Then this is the F1 generation. After that, Mendel again self pollinated them. Okay, crossed with the hybrid. Okay, female, male. When sorry, uh, when he pollinated them, I crossed them, when he crossed them, from here two types of gamete will form. Have one gamete will have the dominant trait, one gamete will have the recessive trait. In this case also, one dominant trait, two type of gamete will form having both having one of the trait in itself. This is the law of segregation, where the traits where the segregation of uh, the law of segregation states that different during the production of gametes, two copies of each hereditary factors segregate so that offspring acquire only one factor. Both the character won't present in the same gamete. Both the I'm so sorry, both the traits, different traits won't come in the gamete. Okay. Now when they cross, what type of offspring are formed? TT. So what kind of offspring will it the this is the tall type. Then this T and this small t, this is also tall. This small t and this big t, this is also tall. These three are tall. So sorry, these three are tall, and this small t and this small t when unite, it will form the dwarf. So this is the F2 generation. So in the F2 generation, the dwarf will show itself. It is the homozygous condition, and these two are the heterozygous condition, and this is also the homozygous. One homozygous tall, one homozygous dwarf, and two heterozygous tall will form in the F2 generation. So only one kind of trait will uh, come from each parents. So this is the law of segregation, and this comes from the monohybrid cross. Now the dihybrid cross, from the dihybrid cross there is one more law, that is law of independent assortment. I will make you understand this in the next class. Thank you so much.